Astronaut George Taylor is giving an audio report from inside a spacecraft. He says he and his crew have been floating in deep space for more than 6 months, but since they were traveling at light speed, 700 years have passed since they left Earth. He says he has no regrets about leaving Earth for such a long time and realizes that the people who sent him up here are now long gone. However, he admits that watching the limitless deep space was impressive. When he notices that his crew is all in slumber and is both hungry and well-fed, he wakes up and finds Tage. The spaceship enters a planet and lands into a sea, waking up the astronauts, all of whom have grown beards except for Stewart, whose hibernation chamber leaked while they were asleep, causing her to age and die. Water begins to seep into the ship, and Taylor orders Tage to read the atmosphere to determine whether they can safely escape. He also asks Landon to send a final signal back, claims that no signal will be received and that the spacecraft is dead. They all exit the ship into an emergency raft with their belongings and debate where they are after. Taylor says they are on a planet in the Orion constellation, but Landon realizes Taylor is not sure, and Tage says it is safe to breathe. Taylor then declares that they must abandon ship before getting out. Taylor notices the ship's Earth clock and realizes it is now the year 3978 back on Earth. They discover they only have enough food and water for 3 days. Landon is not totally convinced when Taylor claims that he observed the Earth clock before departing and that 2,000 years had gone back on their home planet. In the meantime, Tage conducts experiments on the soil and determines that it will not sustain any form of plant. They headed off and spent a long time exploring the weird rocky formations while avoiding landslides and other hazards after Taylor said they only had 3 days to uncover life on this planet, if there is any. In the meantime, Taylor and Landon talked about why they all agreed to go on this adventure. Taylor claims Landon came for the attention, and they both concur that Tage came out of his curiosity, but Landon claims that the Taylor really came because he hated the people of Earth and was trying to get away from them. Taylor disagrees, stating that he just arrived. The 3 astronauts come across what look like scarecrow-like structures, but as they go up to examine them, they spot waterfalls and greenery excitedly. Because he believes there has to be some life better than man in the universe. Finally, after walking for a long time, they find a plant in the ground and realize where there is one there must be another. As they continue their search, shadows start appearing hidden from them in the rocks. They are being followed. They take off their clothing and splash around in the water. They run after the creatures by following the trail of their torn clothes and broken equipment left behind by them until they come to a clearing and find that the creatures actually look like humans, but the humans cannot speak and appear to be feral. Landon notices footprints in the mud just then. Taylor argues that this is advantageous since they can easily subjugate these primitive people, but just then they hear a foreboding noise, and all the savage humans flee in fear as the 3 astronauts begin to move. During the chase, while Taylor is still running and it appears he has escaped, he is shot in the throat and captured. The apes are then seen treating the humans like animals just before the chase begins. Tage is shot and killed by the apes, and Landon is captured. Horses also appear, and gunshots are fired. However, Taylor is shocked to see that riding the horses are apes who are dressed in very proper clothes. When Taylor awakens, he is being operated on in a cage by an ape doctor. Dr. Zira, another ape, comes to see him because she is intrigued by the strange clothing he was wearing. The 2 doctors' conversation reveals that they are animal doctors and humans are considered lowly animals on this planet. Next, Taylor is in a cage outside when Zira and her archaeologist fiancé Cornelius come to see him. Comes, diverting her focus, while another person in the Zayas finds the writing in the sand as he is heading back and uses his stick to erase it inside the cage. After a fight breaks out between him and Taylor is dragged inside. When Taylor finally succeeds in stealing Zara's writing pad, he writes his name on it to show Zara that he is intelligent. Zara then takes Taylor home, where he writes his entire story out for Zira and Cornelius to read. Cornelius does not believe it and thinks it is some sort of cunning animal trick, claiming Taylor could not have flown into the planet because it is too small for him to have done so. It is impossible to fly. Taylor disproves him by creating a paper airplane. Taylor points out the location of his ships landing on a chart, and Cornelius informs them that it is the so-called Forbidden Zone, where no one is permitted to enter. Cornelius declines to pursue his idea that apes originated from humans out of concern that the scientific community's religious authorities, such as Zara, will condemn him of being a heretic. Zara reminds Cornelius of his theory and claims that Taylor might be evidence for it. Zero brings up the relics he discovered while excavating in the restricted area, but Cornelius claims they are no longer relevant to their religious beliefs. Arriving and noticing the paper airplane is Zeus, who has obviously been misled by the religious leaders. Scrolls that just could not be. When Zira informs him that it floats, Zeus is offended and subsequently crumples and throws it to the ground. When the guard tries to take Taylor out of his cage, he resists and flees. The guards pursue him through a market, a temple, and a museum where taxidermized individuals are displayed. Taylor was in the cage when he overheard the guard remark that Zeus personally had ordered experimental surgery on his brain. Among them is Tage. Then Taylor is back in the cage with the female he calls Nova after being separated from her by the apes, and he tells her of his life back on Earth while teaching her to smile. Eventually he is captured, but just then his neck heals and he speaks, shocking everyone. Taylor, Zira, and Cornelius are brought before a committee of religious scientists for a hearing. Taylor tries to speak in defense of himself but is not allowed to. The committee accuses Zira of performing experiments on Taylor's brain and vocal cords to give him the ability to speak. They also accuse Cornelius of heresy for claiming that apes evolved from humans, because they believed that apes were divinely created by God above all other beings. Both of them deny these accusations, and Taylor once more writes down his story for the committee that Cornelius reads for him. The committee suggests looking at Taylor's companions that he claims to have come with him, so they take him to identify them. However, when Taylor finds Landon, he discovers that he is mute due to having had brain surgery. This infuriates Taylor, but the committee finds Cornelius and Zira's attempt to defend their theory of evolution, that Taylor is the missing piece in the evolution of man and ape if he is not from another planet, too persuasive, and orders Taylor to be destroyed while accusing Cornelius and Zira of heresy. When Taylor is brought before Zeus, Zeus acknowledges that he was aware that Landon could talk and that he had surgery to silence him. Zeus also concurs with Cornelius's hypothesis that Taylor is a missing link in evolution. This surprises Taylor, who offers to spare his life in exchange for information on where to find other individuals like him. When Zara's nephew shows up to Taylor's cage and offers to help him escape, Taylor is perplexed and unable to respond but notes that Zeus seems terrified of him for some reason. Since they are being accused of heresy, Zira and Cornelius inform Taylor that the only way they can prevail is by returning to the restricted zone to Cornelius's diggings and discovering evidence of their theory. Taylor demands that Nova accompany them. When they go to the cave which Cornelius dug, Taylor decides to go with them and gets a rifle. However, just as they are ready to enter, Zeus and his men show up to capture them. Taylor's Zeus points a gun at him and orders his guards to back off before offering a deal. If Cornelius and Zira can show that the cave contains artifacts older than the religious scrolls, he must drop his case against them. They enter the cave, where Cornelius offers several artifacts, all of which are rejected by Zeus until they discover a human doll that can speak the word mama. Guards arrive, but Taylor pushes them away by holding Zeus hostage. When Taylor asks, Zeus confesses to them that he was aware of ancient men because the secret religious scrolls mentioned them. Taylor argues that this doll belonged to an intelligent human house because an ape would never make a human doll that talked. He also discloses that the restricted zone was once a paradise and men destroyed it into the desolate wasteland it is now. This is why he was afraid of Taylor and intellectual men, since they portray men as destructive creatures that wage war on one another. Taylor is still intrigued about how apes descended from men on our planet. After Taylor departs, Zeus seals off the cave and tells Zira and Cornelius they will face trial for heresy because he cannot let people know about the intelligent men. He demands a horse and some provisions from the guards in exchange for Zaius before setting off to find the answer alongside Nova. Zaius warns him that he might not like what he finds. A little distance along the beach he learns he was on Earth the entire time and that people destroyed it and themselves thousands of years ago, which causes Taylor to jump off his horse and curse. With that realization, he gets his answer, and the story comes to a close.